Hurricane Erin continues to grow in size and expanse, and that has two significant implications up and down the eastern seaboard. We've also got tropical activity waiting in the wings out in the Atlantic, and we're going to take a sneak peek at your weekend weather across the lower 48, where we have a good, dare I say, epic August forecast for some. We've got that. We're going to test your weather IQ, and we're back in geomagnetic storm conditions again. We're going to get into all of that, but we're going to begin again with our tropical update by taking a look at the latest with what's going on with Erin. Hi everyone, welcome into the channel. Jason here with you. I'm so glad you're here with me to track Hurricane Erin and a couple of other interesting items that we've got on the docket. But we're going to start here with the satellite image for Erin and look at how big this thing has gotten. Remember yesterday we had the shear coming in, we had dry air, it was all lopsided, it looked like it got beat down with the ugly stick. Well, it has gotten its act together in terms of the structure and choked off that dry air, and the outflow has gotten better, and so we now see a much more symmetrical storm. And even the last few frames of the satellite, look, it started to rebuild this inner core, wrapping convection around it instead of being all lopsided to the north and west. And we've even got what looks like a little eye poking through. Sometimes these things can be a little bit of a head fake, but if this is true and we're starting to get some rebuilding of the core, the convection ring around the center, we could see this thing take off a little bit. We've got improving shear conditions over the next 36 hours, and we have a ribbon of warmer water near close to 90 degrees ahead of it. So definitely could see some strengthening, although I don't think we're going to get into Category 4 status, and I'll tell you why. But here's the track between Bermuda and Hatteras, and off of Nova Scotia and on out to sea over the next several days. It's going to take its sweet time getting there, at least in the near term, but that's the official forecast track. Here's the official forecast track, rather, the cone of uncertainty, and the center can track anywhere within this cone, but it's going to remain offshore. So if you're inland anywhere from New England all the way down to the Carolinas, you got nothing to worry about. Along the coast, maybe a different story, gusty winds and some rain squalls, particularly around Hatteras, maybe southern Virginia and up toward Cape Cod eventually. But the big threat is really coastal surge and rip currents and wave action out here in the Atlantic. And what I was going to tell you too, there's two implications for a big hurricane like this. One is that you don't need to be near the center to feel the impacts. You're going to feel those along the coast, particularly out in the Atlantic with wave action and gusty winds along the coast. The other thing is it takes these bigger systems a longer time to regenerate and strengthen. They're not going to undergo rapid cyclogenesis when they're so big and the eye wall is so big. You have to sort of contract that, and that's when you start to see the smaller systems can take off at much quicker. And so that's why we don't really see this thing getting back up into Category 4 status. It's not going to have enough time to do that before it encounters cooler waters and shear. Most of the models keep this at Category 2. A couple of them bring it to Category 3. It could get back up there, especially if the eye wall is actually rebuilding like the satellite imagery looks like it is. And but eventually it's going to, about 2 or 3 days, it's going to get way down here into Category 1 and diminish in intensity as it turns extratropical. This is the wind gust accumulation over the next several days. This takes us all the way out through Sunday. And so up and down the coast, you can see these 40 to potentially 50 mile per hour winds from essentially south central North Carolina coast near Cape Lookout up to Cape Hatteras, and then into New York and Cape Cod, getting up to Nova Scotia, Sydney, St. John's, Avalon Peninsula. Definitely could see gusts into the 40s for a couple of days as this thing rolls by, but the big winds are going to stay offshore, as well as the heavy rains. You may see a few rain bands clip here and there, but that's what effects you're going to feel because the storm is so big. It's going to be far-reaching, even though the center is way offshore. Tropical storm force wind probabilities, these are sustained winds now. They need to be over 39 miles per hour for at least 1 minute, and you have some decent probabilities along Cape Hatteras and maybe Cape Cod, but other than that, it's just going to be tropical storm wind gusts. Here is the wave action as we go on out through the week. Look at this big, we're looking at 20-foot seas, 30-foot seas right off the coast, and that's going to damage the coastline. We're going to see lots and lots of waves. Look how much this reverberates as we go on out in time. It takes up the whole western Atlantic as it moves on out, but you're going to see high surf coming in to Bermuda and down into the Bahamas as well. High surf coming into the beach. A lot of coastal erosion. You're going to see some houses that are kind of derelict fall into the water, and rip currents are going to be a big problem. Some storm surge as well. Duck down to Cape Lookout, 2 to 4 foot surge into the Sounds, 1 to 3 feet down here towards the Santee River. all the way up to Cape May, and they're going to see some northerly winds blow some of that water down toward Norfolk, and you're going to see a little bit of surge there as well. So watch all of that. Rip currents today. Tomorrow looks the same, except a little bit more red up here to the north, but we're going to see a risk of rip currents all through the next several days. Stay out of the water, folks. We've seen a lot of water rescues already. Some people have already died because you think you can handle it and you think you have experience, but this is a big storm, and these waves are massive, and the coastal impacts of that are maybe something you haven't experienced before. So don't strain resources. But that's it for the update for today. We'll keep you posted as things go along, but we've got to take a look at what else is coming in the tropics. But first, I've got one more question on tropical storms, or tropical cyclones rather, to test your weather IQ. Let's see if you know it. Folks, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider joining the team and hit the subscribe button, turn those notifications on. I put out these videos every day, give you the latest analysis of what's going on out here with the tropics and everywhere else that we need to be concerned about. And certainly give the content a like and leave a comment. If there's something I can pray over for you around, please put it in the comments section. I want to build a community here where we're supporting each other, encouraging each other, praying for each other. If that's your thing, it's my thing, certainly, and I pray for you generically every day. Pray for me. Let me know where you're commenting from, and if you have any questions or concerns, I read all the comments and I'll answer every single one of those. But right now we're going to look at our weather IQ question, and this is another hard one. You may not know this unless you're a tropical buff, but you're going to know it, and it'll be interesting to share with your friends if they're interested in tropical activity. By the end of the show, I'll tell you the answer. If you know it, type it in the comment section. But anyway, here's the question. What is the strongest hurricane ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin by pressure? We did wind yesterday. We're doing pressure today. Okay, so here are your choices: Rita, Allen, Wilma, or Gilbert. Okay, if you know it, type it in the comment section. If you don't, just wait till the end of the show and I'll let you know what it is. But we've got to look at the tropics right now in the Atlantic and see what else is coming, and then we're going to take a peek at the weekend forecast. Well, folks, I'm just going to cut to the chase and go ahead and give it away. I hope you'll still watch because we've got some interesting stuff here, but I've got some pretty good news to deliver to you. This map looks a little scary or intimidating maybe. We've got Hurricane Erin here moving off, and then we've got a 60% chance of development out here. But look at the shape of this area, okay? It's moving up to the North Atlantic. What does that mean? Well, anything that moves in here is likely to recurve. That's good news, except for Bermuda could see some action, but it doesn't look like it's going to get very strong. 60% chance there, and then a 40% chance with this secondary wave, which looks like it's taking a more ominous track. But again, as I said, I've got some good news for you. Look out here in the Atlantic. There's Hurricane Erin. Look at this thing, how big it is. Man, that is just massive. And then we've got a tropical wave number 1. This is the one that we're seeing the likelihood of development, 60% chance. And then one behind that, 40% chance. So we've got another one here over Africa, that's what I'm trying to say. And then another one behind that, and several more waiting in the wings. So right now, though, let's see what the models are doing with these systems here. Let's take a look at the GFS. We like to look at the operational runs just to see what they're showing and see how they compare to the ensembles and the overall pattern. Well, there goes Erin. Here's the next system. You see that down here, just approaching the islands. All right, so that's what the GFS is showing. European is showing something similar, and we'll show it to you. There it comes through the islands. It develops it a little bit, a few closed contours, but look what it does. It tracks it just to the east, or the west, rather, of Bermuda. It actually takes it down to 977. That could be a category, 1 storm somewhere in there, potentially. So we'll see. But anyway, it goes on out, and the next wave comes into the Caribbean down here, brings some rain into the islands through the Antilles, and then into the DR, back over into Cuba, but really doesn't do very much with it. It actually has a little bit of homegrown activity off of a frontal boundary, which we will watch and see. I'm watching all of these waves, and I'll let you know what's going on, but it doesn't do anything else, okay? That's the GFS. Here's the European. What does it do? Well, it takes that same low. There it comes approaching the islands up here. And what does it do? Well, not a whole lot. It just weakly develops it, and it takes it to the east of Bermuda. So it's a further out recurve. And then the rest of the run, it just takes these waves out here into the Atlantic, and it's just quiet as a mouse, and maybe see a little bit of homegrown action as a frontal boundary kind of moves through later in the period. But that's what's going on. As far as the ensembles go, now watch this. There goes Erin. Down here, it takes this little wave, only a few ensemble members. Actually, that's what these little red numbers mean. It's out of 51 members, how many are developing the system. You have a few that develop it, but they all move it out to sea. Nothing really to worry about. And then beyond that, not much going on. GFS is pretty similar. So really not a lot of activity. Here's the wind shear. And the reds are where we see higher than normal shear. The blues are where we see lower than normal shear, which is the environment you would expect to see if you're going to see tropical development. Here's our MDR, our main development region, down in this area. So keep your eyes on this area, at least for the next little bit here as we run this thing through. What do we have? We have higher than normal wind shear. That's not good for tropical development. It backs off a little bit as we get on out toward day 8, day 9. We're talking about next Thursday and Friday of next week. We start to see some better shear conditions out here in the MDR. So maybe as we get on out in time, we see things pick up, but then we get bad shear again, and we've got this big boundary across the eastern portion of the country. So nothing's coming in the front door, folks. Once we get on out here toward Monday, for the next week or two, nothing is going to make it through the next week or so, I should say. You never can tell about 2 weeks out, but anything coming toward the United States is going to get deflected back out to sea. Maybe the back door is open if something can get into the Gulf, but no signs of that right now. But that's what's going on. As we take a look here at the smoke map, or the dust map, it's the dust and the smoke map. It can be considered all of that together, but this is what we have going on here. Look at this. We roll this forward. You've got some dust coming off of Africa. There it is out in the middle of the ocean as we go on out into Saturday, Sunday, and then we start to get into next week. We see another plume coming off Monday, Tuesday. Again, not great for tropical development, but then it kind of dissipates a bit. So maybe as we get on out past day 10, day 14, we start to see a better environment out here. Temperatures in the Atlantic are running mostly above normal off the coast, out in the Western Atlantic, the Gulf, the Caribbean, a little bit cooler than normal out here in the main development region, particularly back to the central and east. But look what's happened over the last 7 days. We've seen some areas warm up. This is just the anomalies over the last 7 days. So we've seen some warming down here in the Caribbean. We've seen some warming out here. So things are starting to warm up, except for where Erin was. That's cooling off, as you would imagine, as the water is upwelled out here. And then lastly, just to give you an idea of what might be coming, here's the MJO. We talk about this area of convection in the tropical Pacific near the Indian Ocean. As this moves around, it can influence behavior of weather patterns in other parts of the world. And phases 2, phases 3, that's the location of the convection in the Indian Ocean or over the continent or out in the Pacific. These phases down here is where we would expect to see the best chance of tropical cyclone activity in the Atlantic. Well, what's happening? Well, this is moving back into what we call the circle of death. You see that kind of tracks in there. And some indications are that this is going to reemerge back into phase 2 in maybe 2 weeks. So we may have a situation where we have a couple of weeks where we don't have a lot going on, and then second half of September goes back up again, kind of like 2024. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. But right now, the big takeaway, nothing major or imminent out in the tropical Atlantic, which is good news. But I also have some additional good news, and that is for fall weather lovers. Stick around. We're going to take a look at the weekend over the lower 48 right now. Well, I finally got smart, folks, and created a display that shows these images full screen so we don't have to zoom in and out. The more you know, I guess. There's Hurricane Erin. This is our surface map. We got a low pressure moving through the eastern Great Lakes, dragging cold front back through the lower Mississippi Valley, seeing some rain this morning in the northeast. That'll continue through the afternoon as this frontal boundary sags to the south and east, and it will light up this afternoon in the southeast back into the lower plains. And we've got another little system working through Montana this morning as well, bringing some rain up there. There's Erin off the coast showing out. Future radar, seeing some rain from Albany, Rochester, Ithaca, Utica, all the way into Montpelier and Concord and places like Boston. You're going to see some rain as we move this on along through the afternoon. Heavier rains up here in the northeast. That frontal boundary lights up as we get on into the afternoon. So New York City, you're going to pick up some rain. Hartford, Boston, New Jersey, all the way in here to Philadelphia, Scranton, back into Pittsburgh, Charleston, West Virginia, Asheville, North Carolina, north of Atlanta, down to Huntsville and Jacksonville, and Birmingham, places like that, Jackson, Mississippi, and back over here toward Waco, Texas, Austin, and Fort Stockton. You're picking up some rain. That'll dissipate through the night. Helena up here into Glasgow, you're going to see some rain. So we've got plenty of rain in certain spots. Everybody else is looking pretty good through the night. Showers moving through the northern plains, and look at this, Erin offshore affecting the Carolinas with some rain bands here in the far eastern Carolinas, up here in the mid-Atlantic too, and Cape Cod eventually too. You could see a few of those rain bands fire up. So it's a big storm, wide-reaching impacts, folks. Here is what's coming, though. Check this out, and I've already advanced it ahead. kind of giving you a sneak peek. But let's look at Friday here. We'll get on a tropical tidbits display and show this as our 850 temperature anomaly, but it shows you kind of what to expect at the surface. We get on in through the weekend. We're going to start the weekend off a little bit below normal for much of the east, except for the northeast potentially. But look what happens. This big blob comes into Sunday and Monday and really starts to push south as we get toward the later portion of the weekend. Northern Plains, you're going to have a cool weekend, 10 to 15, maybe as much as 20 degrees below normal possible. And then as we get on out into mid next week, everybody gets on the action from the northeast to the southeast, back to the central plains, from sea to shining sea almost, except for way up here in the Pacific Northwest. Unfortunately, you guys are dealing with warmer than normal temperatures, but boy, oh boy, oh boy, fall is coming. This is a stellar August forecast. It is fantastic. Here is what to expect as we go on through the day Friday and Saturday. There's where the rain area footprint is going to be. Great Lakes back into the northern plains and also in the southeast where the heavier rainfall is, where this frontal boundary is stalling. For Saturday and Saturday night, looking at that frontal zone leading edge of that cooler air mass coming in, and from the Great Lakes down here in toward the southeast, out ahead of that, still got some disturbed weather here parked over the southeast, got some upper level support that's going to continue to keep it a little bit wet down here back to the lower mid-central plains as well. And as we get on out to Sunday and Sunday night, this could be a little bit of a washout on Sunday for spots, a little heavier rain up here in the northeast. May wake up to some showers as you head out to church if you do such things as that. And there is your Florida forecast, looking showery and back into the central plains as well. So that's what's going on there. In terms of the temperatures as we get on into toward Friday, very, very, very nice and cool up and down the eastern seaboard, 70s to lower 80s, and then 70s across the northern tier, warm in the interior portions of the northwest, and hot in the San Joaquin Valley, heated, heat issues up here in this area here of the desert southwest again, but not too bad in the southern plains. 90s out there, not the hundreds that we've seen. Start to work a little bit more heat in as we get into Saturday, but look what's coming in the Midwest. 60s, 70s, and chillier weather is coming. It's going to warm up maybe a little bit out ahead of that front along the east coast, still hot in the west. And then Sunday, as we get on into Sunday, that cool weather is pushing in, slowly pushing south. 70s across the northern tier, 90s, 80s getting squashed farther and farther south. Return flow sets up southwesterly flow. You're going to see plenty of heat out west as well. But look at this map. This is not something you see in August very much. Take a screenshot of this and post it, folks. Much below normal temperatures expect in the 10-day, the 6 to 10 day from August 25th to August 29th, except for Alaska. You're going to be mostly above, Hawaii mostly above in the northwest as well. Above normal rainfall expected out here in the west, which is good, and above normal along the west coast. Everybody else near normal or below. Alaska above and Hawaii below. And that's your weekend forecast. And look at the long range. We're going to wrap things up with space weather. Take a look at those geomagnetic conditions right now. Well, we've been in minor geomagnetic storm conditions. We had a coronal hole turn around and it is now departed, but the wind stream, the lagging wind stream from that, has affected the atmosphere and we've put us into minor geomagnetic storm conditions. If we scroll on down here, you can see that here on the KP index. It's kind of waned a little bit since then, but we could see that spike back up as that density in the solar wind has picked up. You can see that here on the Enlil scan here. Look at this thing. It's moving around and here it comes. You can see it right here on the bottom, and watch that as here's Earth, and see there it hits Earth, and there's the increased solar wind. It affects the magnetosphere. We get into minor geomagnetic storm conditions. Fortunately, it's not very dense. It's not very, the velocity's not all that high, and so we're not seeing major conditions. So it means very unlikely you'll see a lot of aurora action in the lower 48. Could see an aurora, but you'd have to be farther north to see it if that transpires at all. And there is your earthquake map. A couple of shakes going on, but nothing that anybody's really feeling, I'm pretty sure. And there, of course, is the moon. We're down to 8.3%, a waning crescent. August the 23rd, in 3 days, we will be at new moon status, folks. And that brings us all the way around to the answer to today's IQ question. And we'll see how many of you got it right. It was a hard one today, so don't beat yourself up if you missed it. You got to be a tropical buff to get it. What is the strongest hurricane ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin by pressure? Rita, Allen, Wilma, or Gilbert? And the answer is Hurricane Wilma back in 2005. It had a minimum central pressure of 882 millibars. Now you know some useless tropical information, but that's okay. It's still good to have. Remember it, because we talked about the wind speed yesterday. Alan held the record for wind speed at 190 miles per hour, but its minimum central pressure was 899 millibars. And now you know the weather. And one last thing to know from a historical standpoint, the American Civil War officially ended on August the 20th, this day in history, 1866, when President Andrew Johnson declared the insurrection over. So General Lee surrendered at Appomattox on April the 9th, 1965. That's the end of the hostilities, but it was officially over as the declaration was signed on, or officially made rather, on August the 20th, 1966. Now you know the weather, now you know history, and of course, as always, I appreciate you being here with me this morning. Cold Rain always reminds you that weather runs 24/7, but I got you covered 48/14 right here on Cold Rain's Weather World. And follow me on X. If something changes, I'll make sure and post it there too. Hope you all have a wonderful day. See you back tomorrow with another update.